Welcome to an edition of the official Catchup podcast. It's myself, Ben. I'm joined by Chris, as always. Chris has no camera because he claims his camera is shite. But
it is.
Anyway, how are you doing, Chris? All right?
Yeah, not bad. Yourself?
Yeah, can't complain. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about in terms of the different stuff happening within different leagues, I guess, over the last few weeks. But obviously, I've noticed Mozza's not here. Mozza posted a few days ago that he will not be returning to the official catch-up on a permanent basis, certainly. He's obviously got a lot of ties with Broomhill and streaming, and we just like to take this opportunity to thank Mozza. I think, certainly from my perspective, Mozza was probably one of the ones that got me involved in this level of football, not this level of football, but certainly from the Lowland League, kind of via his Twitch streams and stuff like that, and obviously got to know Chris through that as well. So for me, made some great friends at the podcast, and I'll go long past any sort of podcast recordings that we ever have.
Good riddance. Like I said, I mean, he took all the credit for all my work, and he stabbed me in the heart to go to the rival podcast. Nah, I'm only kidding. Mozza's one of my best friends, and it was an absolute pleasure to build this up with him. Can't really speak highly enough of the guy. He literally is. You know, a lot of people, I think some people realise, but we were literally strangers when we started this, and we just had that rapport, and it built into a really good friendship. You know, I love the guy. I really hope, wish him all the best at Open Broomhill. If he does nick any of our ideas, I'll be right on him and get the lawyers involved. Ben, I heard you're good at that, so we'll be ready. So he's still in the chat. You know, I gave you the deciding vote if he should still be in our little chat. But
we need to keep the inside scoop on what's happening at Open Goal Broomhill, though. That's the thing, isn't it? We need to keep the inside track on that. But yeah,
you might steal their ideas.
That's it. We'll keep an eye out what they're up to, and we'll maybe just be playing one by. But no, obviously, it's an exciting time for Broomhill and the whole Open Goal thing. I'll be watching certainly from afar and looking to see what they're doing. And I'm sure it'll have caused a bit of divide amongst the Lowland League and the football fans at this level. But it's an interesting watch, I think, for me, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. They're building a squad that looks quite interesting. So yeah, it's all good. But anyway. Just before we move on to the news and stuff like that, so shout out to our sponsors, the Soccer Shop Direct. You can find them on Twitter at the Soccer Shop D. Check out the website www.soccershopdirect.com for all your teamwear and football equipment needs. So, Chris, there's been a lot happening, certainly over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, the main thing that's came up is the vote around the Colts teams. We're going to be joined by Dave Buglass from Berwick Rangers. I'm just going to bring Dave on now.
Hi guys, all right? How you doing? Yeah, all good.
Not too bad, yeah. So we obviously like to know what's going on within the Lowland League, and one of the votes that's happened recently is the Colts teams. And firstly, probably Dave, just to ask you straight off the bat, what's Berwick's view in terms of how you voted? If you're prepared to tell us that information.
Yeah, I mean, for all those who've got a longer memory, we absolutely voted yes the first time round when the Colts debate came up a couple of seasons ago. In fairness, we took a fair bit of flack and a fair bit of stick for it. We were accused of being charlatans and all that kind of stuff as well, but we discussed it as a board. We also spoke to supporters, and at that time, because it was a one-year gig, we felt it was the right thing to do. I think this season, I think the main thing for us in the last couple of years, as you guys know, and you've been really great help for us, is stabilising the club, getting it ready, and then hoping that we're going to have a go this year with a really great manager and a half-decent squad assembling. So for us, our view this year was that we wanted to focus on a 16-team league, which were all Lowland League teams. We wanted to play the same sides week in, week out. We wanted to make sure our players were primed and fit and ready for these matches. So on the initial vote, which we, I think, communicated our position on the 5th of May, we were a no. So we discussed it as a board, and that was the position that was left at. So obviously in the last couple of weeks, the situation came up again at the Lowland League, and again as a board we discussed it. We had an emergency board meeting last week. We didn't go to the fans this time, and for us it wasn't a difficult decision, but this time we were looking at things like the cost and the opportunity for us, because when we were looking at all the money and it being divided equally between 16 teams, getting Hearts, Rangers and Celtic at Shielfield Park, where we are more fortunate than others and we have really great facilities, it could have potentially went 20,000 for us in terms of income. which after coming down from the league, we've still been trying to fill all the gaps, missing from the parachute. So, but again, our vote was pretty much unanimous. There was a couple of people that were maybe a little bit in the middle, but I think once we talked it as a board, it was flat no again, and we wanted to kind of continue with the 16 vote situation. So.
Right, so Chris, I was going to come to you first before we kind of get into the nuts and bolts. Do you want to just set the scene for everyone else and kind of what has happened in terms of the Lowland League and these votes in the last couple of weeks?
Well, a lot of people will know that we announced that we were not going to be covering the Lowland League from this point, and I suspected really, going from I think a 13-3 to now. 2 weeks later having an 8-8 divide and then the chairperson just making the final call. I suspected that there was going to be 19 teams in the league despite teams disagreeing with it before, and I didn't want any part of that. I don't think either of us did, and I don't want to go too off track. I have more than a good share of reasons why I didn't want to cover this. I mean, I asked you yesterday, Ben, to do a podcast because obviously there's been a lot of cup finals, and then you said something really interesting that kind of was like, you know what, you're right. There's no one apart from maybe Mick Kennedy that holds the Lowland League accountable, and I thought, you know what, if we're going to be covering the tiers below or the non-league in general, I think it's a good thing to do. And I think you were spot on. You kind of, because I was done, and it's nothing against clubs like Berwick that are always been great with us. It's nothing against the players, the managers. They've always been supportive of us. It's just the whole thing's been a farce from we disagreed with the Colts being in it to begin with for a second year. It was a 1 year deal was fine. I think we agreed, Dave, with yous, 1 year, let's try it. Going on to a second year is a bit different. It starts to affect, we saw the potential in the promotion relegation vote. I know Berwick, I think you guys abstained on that one, not knowing the full details there, but, there wasn't enough reasoning. There wasn't enough said, sorry, I think we'll get in there. But yeah, I just don't, it's not that I don't understand it, I completely understand it, but when you're saying you're not wanting 19 clubs 2 weeks ago, and now there's 19 clubs in the league, you've got to suspect that there's arms being twisted in some way, either by the SFA or, I don't know how extra the money is. Maybe, I don't want to get into money, but sorry, I'm going on a wee bit here, but yeah, I've got different reasons to why I said what I said, but I think it's just been a build up, and a lot of people like what I've said behind the scenes. I don't know where I got it from, but it's the way I feel about it. You have to be a clown to want to join the circus, and that's exactly how I feel about this situation.
You've been saving that one up, Chris, haven't you? You've been saving that quote up for a while.
I don't know where that came from. I don't know.
Scathing comment.
But it really is becoming a drama every week getting. And I think that's, you get to a point where you just don't want to be involved in it anymore. We're primarily here to talk about football. And I know you'll agree, Dave, the last sort of 2-3 seasons have been difficult with COVID and everything else that's happened with Colts teams. And when we're on here not talking about football and we're talking about the politics behind the scenes and the SFA and the pyramids and that, it's not enjoyable for me. And I'd rather focus on the football, and I at this moment don't feel like I can do that with the Lowland League. And as I say, it's not against the players of the clubs, it's just how I do at the moment. And a prime example today, again, I'm sure you've probably got more to say on it, Dave, but yeah, it's not about football for me anymore, and I really resent talking about it now.
I mean, it's interesting you were mentioning, I think the thing that disappointed us the most, and first thing I would say, and I said this to Chris earlier on, all these people that run the league, so all day we've seen millions of keyboard warriors, giving their opinion on Twitter, and not many of them positive. I would say 99% of them negative. And I understand why people would be saying that. At the same time, you have to remember that, people running our league at this stage, or even before the last time when it came up, all these people are volunteers. And I remember George getting a hell of a hard time when this first came up. So we need to remember these people have got wives and families and grandkids and stuff like that. So I do think some of it is uncalled for, the abuse that comes. At the same time, they don't help themselves. Like for example, this morning, I'm good friends with two journalists that probably put the stories out before 11 a.m. Our chairman voted in good faith last night on behalf of our board. No. We were told it was embargoed until the SFA announcement at 11, but I'd been sent the Daily Record link at 22:11, and I had no idea what he was on about. Now, I know he probably took a bit of a gamble on it, but somebody somewhere had opened their mouth and filled them in with what was happening. So I think probably that's what left a bit of taste in maybe my mouth this morning and Craig's mouth. And we're getting loads of messages over the course of the day. We're trying to keep up to date with it. We all have jobs at the same time. We're trying to run, our families as well as football clubs. But I think that was what was really probably more gutting this morning. There's no ill feeling towards the two people who are currently at board level within the Lowland League. They've made a decision that they think was right, because if it was 8-8, then somebody's clearly had the cast and vote. I think it's worrying because we've only got two board members at the moment, that somebody effectively has had two votes. They voted on behalf of the club and they voted on behalf of the league. That doesn't feel right. Then again, at the same time, for us, we had to weigh up the money, and we talked about £20,000. I mean, if you just divide the money of the three clubs by 16, it's £7,500. Now, if that's the right number, that's fine. But for a club like Berwick, we could easily bring in £5,000-6,000 at each game in terms of hospitality and sponsorship. So for us, it was quite a big number. And for a lot of the clubs out there who are struggling at the moment, it is a big number. But I still don't think it's enough to sell your soul for, to be honest. And I think what concerns us and our manager and our board is that, what happens if some of our key players get injured in the game against Rangers? Now, I understand they could walk in front of a bus or fall down the stairs or, slip in the kitchen, but we want our players primed and ready for 15 games, 30 games over the course of a Lowland League season to try our damnedest to get in that top two positions, to have a chance to get promoted, because we've loved the Lowland League. Everybody said when you go to the Lowland League, you die. Well, actually, you know what? It allowed us to restructure and, clear all the debt. And we're sitting with a very healthy bank balance and a board that are very, very proactive. So we've now got us, you've got Cowdenbeath, you've got the Shire, you've got Brecon up in the Highlands. So, teams can survive after they come down. But I had never spoken to Mick Kennedy before. We had a bit of banter today on Twitter, and then we started direct messaging. I admire what Mick is doing at Darvel and all the clubs in the West and a lot of other clubs elsewhere. It's bloody hard running a football club at the minute when money is tight and the cost of living has gone up. So it just feels, it just feels a wee bit sour today for us all. And, we're planning for the new season ahead. We've got our facilities all in great shape. We've got our kit all arriving shortly. We're signing new players. And then something like this happens today and it's like, and you just see the whole day get slaughtered all day. And it will get slaughtered all week probably from a brand point of view. So
just to jump on that, I'm sure you'll have more to say, Ben and Dave, but that's another reason why I always felt, you were mentioning journalists there and happened, knowing. Sometimes the Catchup, for whatever reason, would know before clubs, and then I'd be getting DM'd like, how do you know that? And the league haven't said anything. We essentially became the middlemen, not only between the league and the fans, but the league and the club sometimes. The clubs, club people would be coming messaging us, what's happening with this? And it's like, why is it? And that, to be fair, that's not just for the new board, it's for the old board as well. It's like, anything I put out, I suspect the clubs already know. And there was points that they didn't, and I felt shit about it. I'm like, I'm posting, these things, and we know about it, and the clubs don't know. And I think, like, I use that word transparency, which
I think what's worrying for me is, like, the real issue has been hidden today in this comms and press, and that let's just forget the Colts and the Lowland League. I think we all know that the football in Scotland needs a revolution, a pyramid review. And this is to an extent been hidden behind this pyramid review. Now, we also know, the three of us, and we're wise enough, and I'm older than the pair of you, that you're asking 42 clubs to open the door and, allow money that they get guaranteed every season to be distributed more evenly, and the trapdoor to kind of be, a bit more accessible for clubs coming up. It's a lot of money. I mean, it's circa about 100k for us, I think, in the last two seasons when we started parachute payments stopped and we had to fine. So that is a challenge, and I just think maybe committing to a pyramid review and slotting three sides in is just, It's not the right way to do it. And for me, I think I tweeted at one stage today, I'm all for a pyramid review, but does it have to come at the expense of 3 sides coming into our league? Now, I know Tommy McIntyre really well at Celtic. He's a really good friend. I know Craig Mulholland from old at Rangers. Both teams, they were impeccable this season. The way they conducted themselves at Sheffield Park, the way they hosted us when we went to, Edrie and Dumbarton. So it was good playing against them. I mean, it was great to see players like Alex Lowry and look where he is now. It was good to see, Owen Muffet, who I know, and I know his dad really well. I remember seeing Owen when he was just a youngster, 4 or 5 year old, playing at Falkirk Academy. So, but at the same time, there's a bigger issue in football for players this age, and we were presented with stats at the Lowland League board where Rangers showed that their players were closer to first team readiness by the fact they played in the Lowland League, which is absolutely fantastic, and it showed that it was a benefit. But what about all the other clubs that can't afford to pay £40,000? And maybe the bigger issue here is the SFA probably needed to consider putting in place a development league again, or a reserve league, or whatever it is. I mean, Hibs have obviously rejected the chance to be one of the clubs because they prefer to go down south and play, glamour friendlies or pop into Europe and play. So that's why they're not being considered at the minute. But I just think there's a couple of issues that have got kind of mixed up here, and we're fundamentally on the end of it, and I don't think we've helped ourselves today. But it is what it is now, and I think we probably just have to get on. So
I think that's one of the things for me in terms of obviously my background being a tier 6 club and a club that's just recently got our SFA licence and looking to push on through the leagues. And a lot of the people certainly that I've spoken to or seen on Twitter from the tier 6 kind of level of football is that it's always this thing about the Colts, and it's a big issue. But the real bit, like you said, Dave, is the pyramid and the lack of promotion relegation between the Lowland League. We've talked about progressiveness and all this kind of stuff before with the Lowland League, and I think the thing for me is that's the real fight that we need to do as a tier 6 club is accept that the Colts are going to be there somewhere within the structure, but let's try and get what we want from out of that. I guess we can get something out of it because it can't be. It's two different topics as far as I'm concerned. So I think we're channeling our hate and our anger towards the wrong thing. It's ultimately the clubs that have voted for the promotion relegation situation that obviously affects us, and I think that's the thing for me is ideally identifying the clubs and trying to maybe, I guess as well, the other thing, this whole being negative all the time probably isn't going to work. It's probably going to shoot yourself in the foot in the end. Try and show your league in a positive light and say why you deserve to be there. I think that's the thing that I find quite a bit happens all the time is that negativity. And kind of going back to maybe some of the stuff, when I first joined this podcast, all we did was talk about the Lowland League. And granted, obviously, Chris, you brought me in when we talked about kind of the breakup of football and COVID and all that kind of stuff. But when we got back playing, it was all about the matches, and you're talking about players, and you're getting to find out about who was doing well and what the teams are keeping an eye on that. And as Chris has said as well, we just seem to be going back now to a point where we're talking about league structures and pyramids and how the news is getting broken and who's running the clubs or who's running the organisation and things like that. And it's disappointing, but I think for me, I don't see what's going to change personally. I just don't see that. I don't think the way the Lowland League is just now, it is so stuck in its ways, and I don't see until we get some teams up. Obviously, Trinent have come in and they've put a statement out in the last couple of hours to say they voted against it, which is great and what I would have expected from a tier 6 club. But we need to get more through that, whether it's East teams or South teams or West teams. Ideally, then that's probably the only way we'll get change. Really, is getting those guys up and getting on that board.
This afternoon, I did write a statement, which was not overly long-winded, but it just made it clear that we were a no. And we had friends at the Colts. We also had friends at Hearts, where we were lucky to have Adrian Denham last year. So this has nothing to do with the clubs that are coming in. This is just fundamentally our position, the way we want it to be. I shared it on Slack with the rest of the board. In the end, we decided not to post it, and then obviously Chris pinged me after catching Craig. But I didn't have a problem coming on. I wasn't coming on to slaughter anybody. As I said, we all do this because we're volunteers and we love the game. But today's just been a wee bit sour for us, I think, as a club, and probably a lot of other clubs as well. And it's funny, again, we're on about like Mick and that, but it's funny, I was looking on Twitter there, and they've just signed Ross Meakin tonight from Forfar. They're working hard. They've just started tearing up the pitch with a new pitch and stuff like that. You have to admire these clubs, but the one thing that the new board at Berwick have understood in the last 2 years is we do not spend one penny that we don't bring in. We do not run a debt. We do not run an overdraft. Full stop. We are, rich, cash rich in the bank. So it's hard. And moments like this where we're trying to get new sponsors and, increase the profile of the league, it doesn't help, to be honest. And there will be some clubs, I suspect, if it comes out, who voted for it. The fans might vote with their feet. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens in a couple of days.
I think, one of the things that always got thrown at us, especially when we were covering negative, and that's the heart of the issue. I don't want to be coming in here and being negative. And I know I had a kind of spat with the former vice chairperson, Graham Mullen, who obviously he's left now. Nothing to do with us. He made that clear, which I'm glad, because it's not my position to try and get people off boards and call for their heads and stuff like that. But yeah, if I was doing this for likes or trying to be popular, I'd be going straight into the negative. I would be loving the negative stuff to fire everyone up and that. But I can't stand negative. I'm not a negative person. But the last season or the last couple of seasons it's been mostly negative, and I think that's the feeling of fans. It's the feeling of people behind the scenes. And
it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, like, we are all volunteers, but we are obviously in a position at the minute in the board at Lowland where we're looking for new people. We've gone through a lot of people in the last 2 years. And, I think we're actually now talking about, you do wonder at what stage, because we're quite an important league and we are the bottom of the pyramid, we're having more independent board members who are not elected to a club and that, because, and unfortunately today for Thomas, who has spoken to you guys, and he's a very good guy. I know the manager and assistant manager really well at Gala, but he's been put in an untenable position where he's voted again for his club and then he's had to vote again. Now, to an extent, you could argue that Gala have had 2 votes, which, if they've already voted one way, then it's just feels like it's rubbing it a wee bit in the nose. But, it's unfair on him. So maybe a few more independent board members at this level would actually be quite a good thing. I think what was also interesting today is I've seen a few players in the league who are not for it. So I'm a director, we've heard managers, we've seen fans, but actually some of the players, as much as it is playing against guys from Rangers and Celtic and Hearts, they're not for it. So
I was going to ask you about that, Dave, actually, because I know you had your spats with him, if I remember right, with Kevin Waugh. But
we've kissed the head up. It was just a petty thing. So.
Yeah. I know it was a while ago, and you've got over it. But
Kevin's a good guy.
He's a good guy. We've had him on the podcast before. Yeah. I actually asked him on, but he's away on holiday soon, I think, or the next couple of days. So we will have him on at some point. But he's always been honest with his thoughts. But did you consult Berwick? Did you consult the players at all and get their? Because I do get the impression at Spartans that they did take on board what the players said. Because I have heard that Spartans. Obviously, I've done a wee bit of work with Spartans. I know the club has a lot of integrity, class act sort of thing. Craig Graham, obviously, Doogie had his MBE award recently, 10 years at Spartans and stuff like that. But I do feel like I might be wrong, but I did get the impression that they consulted the players, and most of the players were against this.
Yeah, not actively. I mean, Craig is probably at the minute, just due to my work, a wee bit closer to Malky, the manager, than I am. But the manager's view very much was focus on the league, focus on the 16 teams, and focus on the teams we're going to play every week. So not knowingly aware of what the players were saying, but if they were playing at Ibrox and Parkhead, it might be a different conversation, or Tynecastle, as opposed to maybe Whitehill Welfare or Dumbarton, or on an edgy pitch that's maybe needing relayed. But the guys just want to try and get back out of the league, and which is what we've done the last 2 years to restructure the club financially. But no, the manager, the director, and the fans are pretty much we're all on spec. So, and as I say, I didn't come on here. I'm not slaughtering anybody. So anybody that pings me later on from any other clubs saying blah blah blah, it's like I'm not slaughtering anybody. You all do an amazing job to run your clubs. It's a thankless task. You got Ben tonight. You just running from bloody taking training at Kilwinning. We do it because we enjoy it. So, but I just think this is a wee bit of an own goal. So,
just on that note as well. You've obviously mentioned the votes. I'm sure Thomas or Chris would come back and say, well, we're looking to get more people on the board. But as far as I'm aware, this vote you could call into question, because there has to be a certain number of officers or people on the board.
I've seen a few things flying about today on the internet, and a few messages that have been back and forward. So I'm not overly that close to the Lowland League constitution, but we want a constitution should not only protect the league, it should also protect the board members. Because Ben, back to the point that these guys are volunteers, they're doing their bloody best to try and run this league. So it does feel a wee bit squiffy from my life in football at all levels, like having a constitution where two people are effectively a quorum because there's nobody else around. So I have seen stuff kicking about just now.
Just on that, Chris, then, just for clarity, then what is the situation in terms of that slight issue you brought up? I'm just going to read out the quick statement from the Constitution. I believe is the Constitution states that the affairs of the league shall be conducted by a board comprising the chairman, the vice chairman, and 4 ordinary members elected by the member clubs of the league, with no clubs having more than one representative on the board. Members of the board will be elected for a period of 2 years at the annual general meeting. If the organisation is operating with an insufficient number of officers, 6, there's a case to say it's in breach of its constitution. Now, from what you've just told me there, it sounds pretty clear to me that that's the case, and with 2 people being involved, it doesn't sound like they've got that correct number of people involved in the board.
I don't suspect there'll be much pushback from the clubs anyway, but I mean, we're talking about 2 people. If you cut that down to 1, I mean, that's a dictatorship, isn't it, really? And then all the people in the conspiracy theories and whatever, would be right. One guy running a league or whatever. But I suspect you could, if you ask Thomas and Chris, they'll be looking for board members. So it's not their fault that there's...
Yeah, they are, definitely. I mean, I've had conversations with Chris in the last few weeks, and if I didn't travel as much overseas, then maybe I would be it. And I think we as a club at Berwick might now reconsider after today having a representative on. We were discussing it on Slack before when we were talking about this. But, ultimately you're looking for people who are already probably putting in more hours on top of their jobs and their families to put in more on hours on top of that. So it is difficult. Maybe the independent thing is a good thing. Maybe getting people who have possibly been in, when you get asked to be a non-exec director or trustee of a charity like MND Scotland, which I now am, maybe actually we advertise for people, and maybe there are people out there who think they can do a wee bit of a better job and lend some business experience to it. So,
is there also a part, this is going to be a difficult question, I'll probably get people PMing you now, but is there also a part that people maybe not want to be involved in this decision process? Because...
Yeah, I mean, that's running through my head at the same time. I think there's a little bit, with this whole topic's a little bit toxic now, which is sad because, I think we start back at pre-season on Tuesday, so in maybe 4, 5, 6 weeks, we're going to be back playing competitive football, which is actually what this is all about and why the 3 of us do this and, why we kind of love chatting to each other. But I do think there will be a little bit of a blemish now that it might kind of sort of hinder people for the next sort of week or 2. But hopefully we can just get past it. I mean, my board tonight fundamentally said we're not going to put a statement out. If you do this thing tonight, then fine, you've done it. We just move on, and that's it. And I think we will all move on in the next few weeks. We won't agree with it, but we just have to get back to doing what we do best, and that's playing football. Hopefully, it's not another vote next year where it's 4 teams for one season. I saw that tweet, from some maybe else to be involved. Hopefully the SFA can sort something out. I'm not convinced, and I don't think the 2 of you are, and I don't think most of Scottish football are. So,
well, I was going to ask you that, Dave. What do you think? What do you want to see happen next? Then,
I think. I've been really, obviously Ryan Reynolds has got everybody a bit enthused this year. I've watched the English sort of pyramid system down south, and you've seen clubs climb up through. I think we have to get to the point where this nonsense, Darvel, Trinent, and having to play off in some multi-playoff system or whatever it is to try and get into the Lowland League, and then likewise, God bless Bonnyrigg, who did fantastically well this year, having to play Kelvinbeath. I think it just got to be one team up, one team down, and possibly the second team at the bottom of the league then get into a playoff like we do in the other leagues in the Scottish League. But the trapdoor has to work. It's got to be two-way. This nonsense of having to give teams another chance to stay up, it doesn't work. I mean, and listen, this comes from a guy who watched our demise in 2019 where we slid out the league, and we wish we'd taken over the club before that happened, but we are where we are now and we're making the best of it. So but I think we need to
and that's admirable because one of the points I was going to make is they're really hindering the Lowland League, because you think about it, it's going to be one east or west or south team up, and then, for lack of a better term, where you're going to get 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to get an SPFL team come down. The way I see it going, and it's tough to say that, but the last couple of years has proven that. And so we're not. The way I see it now is the Lowland League's never going to reach the potential of being this amazing league, because you are going to get essentially a team on we say death's door, like Cow Beef, for example. I don't know how they're going to change or how they're going to adapt. Hopefully they do, as my local team. But then you get this ambition. It's almost like the polar opposites. This team at, for lack of a better term, death's door, and then you get this ambitious team. So that's not helping your league, I don't think. And I don't think a lot of people talk about the progression of the Lowland League. Until you get more people or more ambitious clubs promoted into the league rather than one up, one down, I don't think the league's going to be that, quality-wise, it's going to get better.
Yeah, they shouldn't be frightened. I mean, they should be. I guess they'll be a little bit frightened about going down the Lowland League, but they should. If they come down, they came down for a reason. Full stop. I mean, I think for us, it had been a couple of seasons before we eventually succumbed. So the signals were there for the board of directors that they should have dealt with it at the time. But we have come down, and you look at the Shire, they may be suffering a wee bit more at the moment, largely because at least we still have a home. Shire obviously playing out at the Falkirk Stadium, but Brecon seem to be doing okay up in the Highland League. Okay, fine. Yep. There was a bit of wait last year. They wanted to come to our league, which just wasn't practical. I think Cowdenbeath will, if they get a hold of it, they will, find themselves and they'll end up joining a league that's going to be a lot harder than they actually realise it's going to be. But you're going to have your Darvels, your Auchinleck Talbots, Trinents, Linlithgow Rose, and all these other clubs. They all deserve a chance, and we have to be fair to these teams. I mean, it's there'll be a lot of teams in this league this year, and the Lowland League will be on maybe 6-figure playing budgets. There'll be some teams beneath this league that will not be far away from that who are ambitious to get up. So you've got to give them a chance. You've got to be fair to them. Otherwise, they'll run out. These clubs will disappear very, very quickly. It does amaze me what I've learned the last 2 years, learning how to run a football club, how some of the clubs in SPFL 2 and 1 are surviving financially. It's bloody hard. And there are teams probably better running the Lowland League, no matter what people say today on Twitter, and likewise in Tier 6 beneath. So I'm all for change, but you have to be fair. And I just think today we've maybe not been particularly fair, but it is what it is now, and I guess as my board have said, we have to get on with it, but we don't agree with it. But we need to make a best fist of it. So
I think one of the things I feel quite strongly about is the fact that maybe some of these clubs, probably most of the clubs at the bottom of, like, say, for example, League 2 or the Lowland League, are maybe being a little bit short-sighted in the fact that they're trying to maybe vote against expanded relegation and promotion, because they might actually find out in a few years' time when they're down there how hard it is to get back out. Whereas if you've got that kind of increased promotion, it gives yourself a better chance ultimately to get back up. If you do have to get relegated and take your medicine and go down to a Lowland League, or if you're a Lowland League team, you've got to go down to a South of Scotland or East of Scotland or West, then you might just struggle to get back up because the path to get back is so hard.
So if you were Kilwinning Rangers and you were like second in the league in the Lowland, and you were in the Lowland per se, and you played Celtic one week and then Rangers the week, you just happened to have them in the fixtures back to back, and you got tanked. I mean, we got tanked at home off of Rangers, and we were far better away at Dumbarton, far better against Celtic in the 2 games, but there was still a gap. But if you get tanked 2 weeks in a row, and that will, from an emotion point of view and a psychological point of view, it will have an impact on your players. At the same time, then your star striker goes and pulls his hamstring or tears his cruciate or something like that, in games that are fundamentally meaningless because they don't actually really affect what happens at the top of the league and who goes up. Let's just have 16 teams. Let's have 18 teams, but 18 teams who want to, who want to go up. I mean, I did also see a tweet today, Wes, in fairness, St Cuthberts, I think it was, the other team in that 3 thing. They were very honest, and I think they realised that they probably wouldn't have been ready for the Lowland League this year. The level is just too big a step. But absolutely no doubt, Darvel as well as Trinent would have been an absolutely massive asset for the league this year. So
one thing I think I asked you, Ben, but do you think the West underestimated the East? Because a lot of people thought Darvel were going up, let's face it. But Trinent are a good team. In fact, there's a lot of good teams in the East. Pennycook, Linlithgow Rose. I think, in fairness to Linlithgow Rose, if Herdy was in charge there the whole season, I think they would have been right up there too. I think they've got a brilliant team. And obviously we saw it when they beat Gala in the cup final. So did the West underestimate the East, do you think?
I think probably the core of the fans, but I mean, talked to a couple of Darvel players, they were under no illusions of what Trinent were like as a side, and they were definitely up for the game and weren't too sure how it would go either way. And obviously it was close in the day, but I think probably you're right, the fan base. But I think potentially that maybe lends itself to the fact that the likes of Darvel, Clydebank, Auchinleck this year done really well in the Scottish Cup. They've done well in the South Challenge Cup, things like that against sides in these two. So maybe they just had a wee bit of confidence that maybe wasn't as big maybe in the end. But obviously for Darvel, they're doing what they're doing. I don't need to talk about Darvel because I know I'm public enemy number one there just now. But
it's funny because we were talking about it a few weeks ago. I think I was in the US when the game was on, and I think most of our people at Berwick didn't even largely check the Twitter. And it was no disrespect to Trinent because we know for us it's a new derby. We'll get a decent turnout with that game and we look forward to it. But I think people expected the Darvel to get the result at home. So it was a bit of a shock. But in fairness to Mick and the guys, they played a lot of football.
Yeah, absolutely.
It probably got to them in the end a little bit, legs and stuff like that. But again, there's two cracking sides that would have made a really fantastic 18-team league this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can't argue with that. Obviously, my own background, and we are one of those teams that are progressive enough and want to move through the leagues and then have sights on being a league club. I think that's probably why we're all doing it. We're not here to be. I mean, there'll be some teams who want to happily be a kind of Tier 6 West of Scotland team, for example, kind of old juniors, if you like, type mentality, which is fine, and that's what you want to do. That's cool. But I mean, clubs like Kilwinning, Pollock, Auchinleck Talbot, Darvel, not spending the money to buy floodlights and do all the paperwork that it takes to be a licensed club. You've got to make sure that there's an open path to get there, and that's not really there just now. And I guess the Colts thing is here to stay. We just need to kind of suck it up and deal with it. Like you said, Dave, you're not going to put a statement out, but you're chatting to us tonight, and you'll move on from that, and hopefully we'll see things in a positive light from the Lowland League, because that is, as I've said time and time again, it's all been negative in the last few months.
The only thing that will make this better, the only thing that will make today slightly palatable, will be if there is a review that changes football in Scotland. Full stop. And that's what everybody will hold against us in 12 months' time, unless we see something start to happen. Then it was just another, bullshit excuse. So fingers crossed something does start and there is a review of the game. But we're a members' organisation. 42 people hold the keys to the decision what's next. So we've seen change in the women's game. The all coming now under the SPFL. I mean, I was at City for 3 seasons. I know how unpopular decision that was at that time, but in the end they've kind of gone with it because they believe it's going to be a better product moving forward now. So let's see if we can do something similar in the men's game and shake it up. But again, I saw somebody, I think Stephen Anderson, who's coming to us this year, he commented against me as well on Twitter today. I think his point was he's not really interested in the ins and outs of the decisions today, but his big thing is, after being an SPL player for years and years and years at St Johnstone, the development of young players is critical here. How do we actually help the development of young players? So what do the SFA do for all the young players at all the clubs, not just these 3 clubs? And I think this is where it stems from. 2 clubs fundamentally have driven it, with a 3rd club coming in now, but we need to look at all the clubs and be fair. So
the worst thing they done was get rid of the reserve league. I think that's the worst thing you could do. Yeah. I don't know the reasons behind it, but as soon as you took that reserve league out, I think that's when it becomes for whatever reason it becomes a non-league issue where Rangers and Celtic, now Hearts, want to be in the Lowland League, and I don't blame them. I honestly do not blame the Colts team, and I don't think anyone should, because they're just there. They fundamentally believe that it will help their players, and like you said in the presentation, that's what they've proved that. And I don't blame the Colts teams for the decisions. I don't, they've put out there, and it's been accepted. But yeah, it's just the other decisions, and with the relegation promotion, and then it being in for a second season, and obviously, oh no, we don't want 19 teams, now we have 19 teams. It's just, I don't know, it's not looking good for us on our side for being advocates.
That number's appalling. I think we all agree, the 3 of us, and most of the people out. 19. At what? Name me a league in Europe it's got an odd number of teams in. I mean, it's just, that's what's probably grinding people as well. Like, I saw a couple of people today then saying, just get Darvel in as well. Just get the runners up from the playoff in. Just put them both in. We know that credibility-wise, they meet the aspirations of the league. So 19 is just odd. I mean, you're going to have one team off now every weekend. So silly.
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense if that was something that could be done. But do we think that's something that could happen? I don't think so. I don't see how that actually plays out. But makes sense. And I mean, as I said before, I mean, I'm probably public enemy number 1 in Darvel just now. But certainly, would love to see them go up. I mean, absolutely would love to see them go up, and I think they would do well in the Lowland League. And
you want them to go up, Ben. You want them to get out of the league, don't you?
I totally. I mean, I just don't want. I don't want to go there. No, I'm joking. No, honestly, I mean, as much as we have our laughs and have our digs in Twitter and all that, it's all back and forth. For me, it's always banter. That's the thing about that. There's no malice intended, and I really wish them well. I think I said that at the time, and we played them in the last game of the season, and they won the league that day. And I was straight up to Mick afterwards and shook his hand, said congratulations, well done, and good luck in the playoff. I mean, I'm not. There's no malice. It's all football we talk about. Chris talk about football every week on this podcast, and I totally get it. My opinion might not matter to someone else, or they might not like what I've got to say, but equally, we're all putting ourselves out there for the love of the game to talk about it, and that's what we're doing. And for me, as Chris said earlier on, about kind of holding the league to account and the clubs to account, because I don't see it from any other sort of real media output. To be honest, the papers pick up on it when it's the Colts, because it's the Colts, and it drives them to get likes and shares and views and all that on articles. I totally get that, and I'm fine with that. That's their job, but we're passionate about the game and this level, and that's just why we're doing it. So I think the fans and the clubs and the players need a voice, and we're trying to do that for them.
I know we're probably towards the end, guys. I know you want to get off and watch Love Island with the missus.
Of course.
But you've got to thank Darvel, surely. You're in a cup final because they pulled out. Would you have beaten them otherwise?
Given the squad we'd have had available, no, we probably would have. I mean, you never know, strange things going to happen, but yeah, I mean, fair play them. They've chose to pull out. And
no disrespect to the bus team there, sorry, I shouldn't.
Yeah, we're heading into a cup final. I'll be quite honest, I thought we were going to be playing Pollock, but fair play to Hurlford. We've got Hurlford on Saturday, so it'll be interesting. But yeah, I mean, that's probably another episode for the catch-up. Thanks to Dave, obviously, for coming in to...
you're welcome. Listen, thank you. Yeah, you were all that stood between me and packing a suitcase, so when he pinged me earlier on. So yeah, no, listen, I hope I've been fair. I certainly haven't been aggressive with people. I understand we all do it for the right reasons that we think at the same time, but yeah, we just fundamentally we didn't agree with it today, so we're a no. But let's just see where it goes next, and we need to get on with it. And wish you all the best on Saturday for your cup final.
Chance for some silverware. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. But
yeah, we're back to training next Tuesday, so the break's gone. That's it, finished. So
I've obviously thanks for coming on, David. It's always great chatting to you and catching up. It's been a while. Obviously, you know, I've said I don't know what we're planning. We'll obviously have the summer to think about. We'll still do that. Lowland League guys, players, managers, they'll always be welcome. Whether we're covering the league in the depth that we were, probably not. But you guys are always welcome. We've
got some characters. I'm sure we can get you some Kev Woffs from our place. I'm sure.
I'd appreciate that. It'd be good to chat to them. But yeah, you are always welcome. We'll see how it goes. I know Ben's always, you know, he's pretty keen, as I mentioned at the start, to still talk about it and still represent the whole pyramid. Whether we agree with some decisions or not, it's always difficult. But we'll see how it goes. I might feel different in a month or two. We'll see.
We'll see you all the first week of the season. Don't worry about that. We'll be here. Right, cheers out. Thanks for listening or watching, and we'll catch up soon.